All of the opinions in this video are my own, and that's all. Hi, welcome to my channel. This isn't the type of video I usually make, but I don't really make videos anyway, so this must be of somewhat importance, right? On September 10th, the hashtag cancel Netflix was trending on Twitter, which I only found out after telling my sister that I just watched this random weird movie called Cuties. So I did watch the film before I knew anything about it. I didn't know anything about the trailer, about the poster, about all of the controversy that happened even before the film was out, and I didn't know about the film when it came out. I just watched it because I saw it there. So I did have the benefit of watching this film without any preconceived biases, which I think helped with my overall viewing experience. So before I analyze this entire film, I just want to preface by saying I am not promoting it. I just saw a lot of criticism about the film coming from people who directly said that they hadn't watched it, which I don't think is exactly fair is not the right word. I just feel like if you're going to have such a strong, solid opinion on something, you should at least know what the thing is that you're talking about. For example, there was the rumor that the kids in this show at some part exposed themselves, which was not true. That never happened. So things like that, because to form an opinion, you gotta have all the facts straight. But I'm not promoting it. I'm really just here to talk about what happens in the film. So if you don't want to watch it, you at least know what happens, and to kind of say what they were going for and what ultimately went wrong. All while drawing a picture, just so I can have something to do, because this movie is a lot. So according to French director, and I apologize in advance for when I say her name wrong, but Maimouna Doucouré, Cuties is about an 11-year-old girl named Ami who is trying to find herself. Throughout the film, she's navigating between two modes of femininity. One represents her mother, who is a conservative Muslim Senegalese woman, and the other represents a group of girls her age who are in a dance group self-named the Cuties. Okay, so the film. The film starts with the main character, Ami, who is creating a cute little arts and crafts thing of her family. We see her have this very playful moment with her brother, and it's immediately introduced that she is obviously a child. Ami is then seen at a gathering with a group of women who are from the same religious and cultural background as her, and they are praying together. In this scene, we even hear Ami's aunt say, "Do everything you can to please your mother," which I think is a pretty important... I cannot draw and talk at the same time. I don't know why I thought this would be a good idea, but that statement right there is a pretty good indication of just the way in which her family functions and the importance of respect, which in turn means behaving a certain way yourself to show that you respect your mom. This might be a stretch, but that's what I thought. So basically, we're exposed to the influences she's had all throughout her life. This is then combated with the introduction of Angelica. We see her dancing, relatively normal at this point. In the laundry room, she comes across as very carefree and confident. She's intrigued because up until this point, we've just seen her as very timid, which is pretty much the opposite of the energy that Angelica is giving off. Once this scene ends and we're back at home, we see that Ami's mom finally has the opportunity to see the arts and crafts project thing of her family that she made for her, that was laid out on her bed, and she kind of dismisses it and pretty much tosses it over. And this might also be a stretch, but I viewed this as the idea of how things that kids care about and value in general as a child are deemed as relatively unimportant to adults. The next day, we see Ami mimic the girl from yesterday before attending her first day at her new school. This is important and the beginning to a lot of monkey see, monkey do type antics from the main character. At school, we see Angelica again and are introduced to her friends. They're introduced in a pretty way because they are obviously dressed very different from the rest of the kids at their school, which, I mean, I think pretty much highlights that not everyone at the school behaved the way that they did. They have this little thing that they planned out with the rest of the students where at some point they just froze. At the end of this little stunt, we see that it's Angelica and all of her friends that are still remaining. Again, sort of highlighting the fact that they pull and poke at the rules and see what they can get away with. Anyways, we see, like before, Ami is intrigued. At home, we see Ami again mimicking Angelica, and this time her friends as well, by tying her shirt up to be a little bit shorter. But then her mom comes in, and in an attempt to hide this from her, she hides under the bed. This is when Ami overhears that her father has taken on another wife, and hears how her mother is audibly distraught about it, but doesn't do anything because of the way in which her culture operates. She even states, "May their union be blessed by God." Again, indicator of the world that Ami is coming from. Later, Ami, while grocery shopping with her brothers, sees Angelica and her friends at a store and drops everything to follow them. She watches as they rehearse one of their dances, but after noticing that she's there, they don't really like it. They start swearing at her and throwing rocks at her, which I thought was very excessive. But they start throwing rocks at her and even hit her and ultimately bully her away. This, however, doesn't even slightly sway Ami because, like the kids that bullied me in elementary school, sticks and stones can break her bones, but she would literally give a kidney if it meant that these girls would like her. She goes home and bribes her brother into giving her one of his shirts so that she could have a cropped fit to wear the next day. We are then briefly introduced to Samba, Ami's cousin, who she steals the phone from, to essentially just have something that brought her a little closer to being normal in the terms of these girls in this school. We're then taken to a scene where Ami is trying on a dress for her father's second wife. Ami, again knowing the way that her mother reacted to the situation, isn't very happy, but does what she has to do. At school, she is made fun of by the cuties. Do I have to call them that? I think I'm just going to call them the girls because the cuties just feels weird. But she's made fun of by the girls, again, because peeping Tom. During this scene, they made fun of her for watching them earlier, teased her outfit, and mocked her ability to dance. And all of these things are sticking with her, and she's just taking it and like a sponge absorbing it and figuring out how to change all of these conceptions. Back at her apartment, Angelica, who is Ami's neighbor, remember, uses her to hide from her brother after stealing his work shirt. Angelica, now in solace with Ami, spits on some random powder that she found on a table and puts it on Ami's head injury, which was caused by one of her friends, which I thought was a pretty gross but honest reminder of, again, the fact that they are kids and they're young and naive. Ami finds Angelica's Instagram on her stolen phone, and after posting a filtered selfie, is filled with happiness at her first like, which I believe was from Angelica, but I might be wrong. We get a lot of little reminders of how young the girls are. For example, with their weird explanation of how babies are made, they don't really know what it is, even though they have some kind of semblance of an idea. But it's also here that the girls push Ami into recording a boy that they like using the bathroom. And because she's so impressionable and obsessed with their lifestyle and overall is shy, she does it without a second to think about what is being asked of her. It's this weird sort of like combination of these little kids having a conversation about adult things and wanting adult things, even them going into the bathroom and filming this boy to get a picture of his, is something that they've most likely learned to do and to want to see. So they leave her the second she gets caught by the kid. And Ami doesn't really get a video, which is a good thing, I would say. Ami and Angelica's friendship grows, and we get these juxtaposing scenes of them being children and then clips of them trying really hard to be adult. Ami, finally being somewhat accepted into their group, is brought into their rehearsals to record them. We see her learning from these girls. She's often seen looking to them for approval. In this scene, the dances are really not anything far from something you would see in a Dance Moms episode. However, this particular scene does start to get into adult territory when we see the girls start making fun of Ami for being flat. So we see her practicing the girls' dances some more. She's at another one of these gatherings, and we see her still out of curiosity, but maybe a little further than she would have gone in the past, and watches a music video with a bunch of women twerking on each other, like a typical Migos video. At the end, she watches women from the group leave and stares at their butts, connecting the idea of a big butt as something to be sought after, like one of the girls implied when they called her flat, like the music video with the women twerking on each other. So sometime while the girls are hanging out, they're approached by a group of guys who are obviously older than them, and the guys start flirting, which was weird to me because even for these like little kids, the girls look like they're like 5, so I don't know. Anyways, but they start asking them how old they are. All of the girls start saying they're 15, 16, just older than they actually are. And Ami reveals their actual age, and the boys aren't impressed. Later on, the girls tell Ami that she should have lied. Like, why would you tell them her actual age? So after this little weird encounter with these boys, the girls are out in a park of sorts. Eventually, one of the girls, her name is Kumba, finds a condom on the floor, and she blows it up because she thinks it's a balloon. And all of the girls start screaming and reveal that it's actually a condom, along with the additional false information that it would give her cancer and AIDS. They proceed to scrub her tongue with soap, ensuring that this will fix the problem. More examples of how naive they are. After a mishap with one of the girls, Yasmin, Angelica wants to kick her out of the team and even gets into a physical fight with her at school. Ami invites herself as a replacement for Yasmin, and to prove she is up for the job, she shows Angelica her dance moves. But remember, she hasn't just learned the routine. She's also been copying dancers in music videos that are way too mature for her. So this is what she presents to Angelica. This footage is very uncomfy and is the beginning of a lot of very hypersexualized images and scenes of the girls dancing. So I won't be showing it. However, this is what gets her in the group. They even have her show them her moves so that they can incorporate it into their routine. Ami's excessive strides towards maturity get progressively worse from here. She's pulled back into the livelihood of her family when told to help prepare what looks like the size of 2 fat babies worth of onions for her father's wedding. This is a problem for Ami because auditions for the girls' dance competition happen around that time. Soon after, we see the dress she's supposed to wear to the wedding bleed. What this symbolizes, I don't know. I genuinely don't know, and I'm very open to interpretation. Ami leaves her cooking duties to try to make it to the audition, but is too late. When she goes back home, she's scolded by her aunt. However, this is interrupted by the fact that she gets her period. Her aunt tells her how around her age she was getting married, and her mother tells her that she is a woman now. So we get this sort of definition like, okay, you are a woman because now you have gotten your period. And again, this is from her family's side and their background and way of thinking. However, it's really a marker for this change that starts to develop within Ami, internally and externally, and we see that progress throughout the film. At school, after the girls confront her, she desperately pleads for their forgiveness, scared of losing their acceptance. They accept her apology and just tell her, you better not have cost us this audition or else, So basically they're waiting to hear the results of their audition, and in the meantime, choose to break into a laser tag room. Reminders of their youth and just childlike, guess, wonder and ability to have fun are soon contrasted after getting caught by the laser tag security. In an attempt to get out of trouble, they say they are orphans, threaten the guard with accusations of being a child molester, amongst other things. Another guard comes in to help, which is when they get results that they passed their audition. The girls use this information as a way to get out by saying they really are dancers, and if they get in trouble, won't be able to dance in the competition. To prove they're telling the truth, Ami starts twerking. Again, I won't show this. I think this was the scene that made me the most uncomfortable, not only because they were dancing for men, but the second guard at some point even seems to like it, which is disgusting. So the first guard lets them go and even says really to the second guard, confirming my speculations of his enjoyment, which again, disgusting. But this is so important to the film's narrative because it's basically reinforcing the idea that being a sexualized, hypersexualized object of sorts will get you what you want. And then we get this really drawn out clip where the girls are fully dancing with the film's full intent of sexualizing them. This is evident not only by the way the kids are moving, but from the camera movements itself. This video is something that the girls are recording for Instagram, and when they post it, get a bunch of likes. So now we've seen 2 instances of their adult behavior reaping rewards for them. The next school day, Ami comes in, and I straight up thought that time had passed, like years, because she comes in and she did her hair, got a new fit, and looked way older than she has looked this entire film. But it's literally just the next school day. People are staring and smiling at her as she walks by, telling her she rocks, which I had to laugh at. This is why I listened to the French version and read subtitles, because if I heard "You rock" from a Gen Z in 2020, I think I would get whiplash. Even her friends, who up until this point threw jabs at her every once in a while, were praising her like she's never seen before. This is what she's been waiting for, their acceptance. This hype kind of dies down after this next scene, where their rival dance group, throws a can at Ami and her friends. Ami picks a fight with her, which is awfully reminiscent of Angelica's fight earlier. She probably thought it would be another way to fall into their good graces, but the fight just ends in the rival girl pulling Ami's pants down, revealing her underwear. The girls help her and back her up and leave from the situation. Later, we see that Ami steals money from her mom and, again, briefly looks at her dress for the wedding, which at this point is moving, kind of looks like it was breathing. And Ami takes her friends and brother on a shopping spree. It's followed by another mature montage of the girls being sexualized. They're not dancing this time, but just posing in very, mature ways. At home, Ami's mom finds out that Ami stole money from her and even scolds her about it, but Ami is not interested. Ami's preoccupied with the idea that the girls are being made fun of because of the underwear situation. So in an attempt to counter that, after Ami's cousin finds her with his phone and tries to take it back from her, she tries to persuade him by starting to unzip her pants. At this point, she's being praised for sexualizing herself so often that she assumed that this would just work. When he pushes her away, she fights him to get the phone back and locks herself in a bathroom, and in the spur of the moment, takes a picture of her nono square and posts it to Instagram before tossing him the phone back. At school, a boy calls her a slut, so she proceeds to stab him with a pen. Ami's mom confronts her with all of the things that she's been getting into, bringing up how she's already suffering with her husband and Ami's father, but Ami seems unfazed. In the next scene, they sprinkle water on her, trying to exorcise the evil out, and we're presented with this really gross visual. I think it's Ami fully rebelling. She's moving in ways that are that could be indicative of like, getting some sort of spirit out of you. It's very sexualized. So that's why I saw it as sort of this rebelling on her part. So at this point, Ami is fully rejecting her mother's views and ideas and kind of just wanting to be being this person who essentially knows how to get what she wants, which is through not sex, but the idea of sex. When meeting with the girls the next day, they greet her with complete hostility. Her photo, according to them, was too far. Instead of being praised, they are all now being demonized and called sluts. Ami is no longer looking to them for acceptance or rules. She's surpassed them and is going deeper into this idea of mature femininity. At home, Ami's mom brings someone in to pray over her. The depth in which she's gone is beyond anything her mom can handle at this point too. And she believes there must be an evil presence within her. However, the person who comes says there's no devil or evil spirit here. Angelica tells Ami she can no longer be in the show with them, and they replace her with their old friend, Yasmin, which doesn't work for Ami. We get to the day of the wedding, which also happens to be the day of the dance show. Ami chooses to go to the show and pushes Yasmin into a river so the girls would be forced to allow her to perform. They don't know that she pushed Yasmin into a river. Yasmin just doesn't show up, and so they're like, well, I guess she's here. Why not? Then there's another way too long dancing where the girls are being super inappropriate. The crowd starts off by cheering them on and eventually starts to boo them, and this later on turns into pure disgust as we see the crowd watching and unable to, I guess, fathom just what they're seeing. A bunch of 11-year-old girls twerking on stage. I say twerking, but that's kind of an all-encompassing word for a lot of things that they're doing, which I don't really know the terms for. But like, think WAP. Think the WAP dance from TikTok. Stuff like that. Times 5. At the end, Ami suddenly becomes aware of where she's at. Ami sees an audience that disapproves of what she's doing and judges that encourage her to keep going. She runs to her mother for consolation, not necessarily choosing her mother's way of femininity, but realizing she does identify with it in some ways and can ultimately choose what femininity means to her. The last couple of shots of the film includes Ami's 2 outfits sitting side by side. She goes outside, not wearing her dress, but also not wearing a typical Cuties outfit. She joins a couple of kids who are jumping rope, and the film ends with her jumping and smiling. So that's the movie in a nutshell. You probably already know this, but a lot of people were really angry about the initial poster that was released on Netflix for the film, because it was this. It is a scene from the movie, and it's very suggestive, and it was also accompanied by this description. Netflix eventually did apologize for using both of these methods of representation because they said that it didn't accurately represent the film, which I would argue for the poster and description is true according to what the director wanted the film to be. And also when comparing it to the French poster, you completely see that they're giving off completely different vibes. News articles try to make it a left versus right thing. So in one article I found, the film was summed up as a leftist fight against the patriarchy. But the main argument that everyone, I think, on both sides, no matter what you felt, was that this film was exploiting children. YouTuber Blair White even compared it to abusing animals to talk about animal abuse. Lauren Chen talks about how no matter what the message you're trying to convey is, you can't use kids as a pawn for your art, which I thought was a pretty good point. Another question that I saw a lot with people who were criticizing the film was, who is this film for? It's not for kids. None of the kids who were in it can watch it. It was rated mature, so it was obviously for adults. At the end of the day, the girls that were in this film have been placed in a position where they are forced to be hypersexualized, whether they were introduced to that before or not. And that's going to come with a lot of things. Most of all, probably attention, but also it's just, introducing them to something at an early stage of their life. However, what I do want to say is that the director, Maimouna Doucouré, did make this film as a result of an experience. She had a very specific experience where she witnessed girls the same age as the ones in these films dancing in a hypersexualized way. This stuff is happening. However, I don't know, I guess what everyone was saying and what I'm not sure about is whether or not it needed to be portrayed the way it did, because the scenes where the girls are dancing are shocking on its own, but they're so long. Why do they need to be that long? Could it have been expressed, this whole concept, without the girls being as sexual as they were, or as sexualized as they were? Could it have been portrayed with people who were older? My opinion, I don't know. I don't think the goal of the director was to get the viewer to feel weird, inappropriate feelings towards these girls, but to make the viewer complicit and force you into a discussion about the sexualization of kids. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. However, why did it have to be actual minors? Why did each dance scene have to be so long? We know these things happen in real life. You probably wouldn't have to look too far to find kids 13, 12, 11, even a little older, a little younger, dancing to WAP. But is the message and stance of being awareness enough of a reason to actually exploit these kids? I don't think so. Where I stand on the film is that I do understand the point. However, I feel like there are multiple avenues in which the girls didn't have to be presented in the way that they were. Because at the end of the day, they're real kids. Maybe this film would have been different if it were animated, but these kids are real and they were exposed to a lot of things in this film, and I'm not sure if having an on-site psychologist was good enough. I'm not going to be deleting my Netflix account, and I don't think that Maimouna deserves death threats, but I definitely won't be watching this film again, and I agree that it probably just doesn't need space on an American platform. So if you're watching this, I would love your opinion and perspective on, I guess, maybe what could have been done differently, or I don't know, just anything. I just want to have a conversation about this film. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for watching. This drawing was last minute. Maybe I'll frame it. It's a little messy, but I like it.